So I'm recording to the cloud, let's
Yep.
say.
Or maybe let me try from here.
Okay,
Please.
I was recording and I stopped
Okay.
it.
Do you see up in the top left corner, it says recording?
Yes,
Okay,
but
good.
the thing is, I mean, it'd be great to give you permission because I don't know how to get it down. How am I going to get this back?
I think at the end of the meeting, you get a link to it. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, they've thought of everything, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Can it be edited, do you think?
No, it's really hard to edit. That's why when we record these things for the webinars and such, we try to put an intro slide up and a finishing slide up, and then that's pretty much most we can do for editing. We just don't have the tools.
Okay, I'm walking away.
Okay,
You're gone.
you haven't even arrived yet.
I don't know what to do. I was on a Zoom earlier and it worked. I don't know what.
Do you have multiple Zoom apps running, maybe?
I don't think so.
Well, if you look at the menu bar below, I'm using a PC. Often you can see little icons, like multiple Zoom icons. Looks like a little.
I can, and this is the only one.
Is it? Okay. Well, very strange. And your video icon doesn't. You can't click it and unclick it.
I don't even see it. It needs to. Here, you know what? I'll go to full screen. That sometimes helps. Yeah, here we go. It says stop video, but it doesn't show me how to start it. The video is already unstopped.
Can you just click on it? No. All right.
Now it's blocked.
Wow, that's really weird. Okay.
Well, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. Let me try it. Maybe Jackie can like has the power to open your video up.
Really? Do you think I would?
If you go to sometimes if you go to participants, the little button at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
I see Wally, and it shows that his video's on, I think.
Is it? Okay. Hey, Alex.
Yeah, hi, Alex. Yeah, Wally, I'm showing your video on.
I know. I am showed. Now it says it's got something through it.
Right, and now I'm going to
stop your video.
Ask to start video.
Host has asked you to start your video. Start my video. Host has stopped your video.
I didn't touch it. Make host.
The host has spotlighted your video.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. What does spotlighting video mean?
I don't know, but it's not working.
Well, Wally, you're in the background.
I guess.
Hey, everybody.
Alex, can you help us?
Hi.
Weigh in.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi. Hi, Ted. Thank you for coming. Let's see what we got here.
Alex, City of Gardena.
Join the meeting.
Ah. Yes.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, we
Hi.
can't see, and it's, oh, yeah, Ted is, yeah, I don't know what's happened to you, Wally. It's
You know,
not,
it worked this morning.
it's so funny. Make a co-host, allow record and rename. I can't figure it out.
Well, sometimes it just pops back in. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Magic of the super information highway.
It still says host has stopped your video.
I know, and I just asked to start it again, and now it's not working to start it.
My video, okay.
Oh,
Host
okay.
has asked you to start your video. I'm clicking start my video.
Okay. Okay.
How come Aaron has a cool background? What's going on here?
I know, isn't it great? I love it. Yeah.
Spacey.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, other people should, oh, it's 3 o'clock now, so people should be joining.
Here we go.
Yes, great.
Chris.
And
Cool.
this is- hi, Terry, Mark Henderson, great. Terry, nice to meet you.
Well, good to meet you, Jackie.
Welcome, Mark.
Hey, how's everybody?
Just fine.
All right.
And here's Carrie. What is this? I got something from Michael. Okay, Michael can't seem to find the login, so.
Attached to the agenda, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna send him back the thing.
Harry joined the meeting.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Carrie, how you doing?
Hey, Carrie.
Good. How's everyone? How's Monday going?
Well, so far it's too many Zoom calls.
Is it Monday or Wednesday?
email,
I
Zoom
lose track
calls.
of the days.
It's Monday.
Are you sure it's
Here's
Monday?
there's Michael. Great.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, glad you found the check-in, the login. So we're waiting for a couple more people. We'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. My Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday are very busy, and then Thursday and Friday it really slacks off. Is that the way it is for you guys?
Oh, I'm busy until Friday.
No.
What does slacks off mean?
I didn't
Slacks
get
off
that
means
memo.
it's more normal. Okay, hi Stephanie.
Mhm. Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. And Steve Lance, great. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes. Oh, look where you are, Stephanie. Are you at a rally?
It's obvious, I don't have my mask on.
You doing a little picture taking for the next face that's going to get carved in the mountain?
Yes. I change my backgrounds every day, different themes. So right now the theme is national parks. So
Oh, nice.
this is, yesterday I had, or I should say the end of last week, I had Half Dome, I had, the Yosemite Falls, I've had the sequoia trees. So
Nice.
we're just touring. Seems like somehow nicer to look at than my stodgy old office.
Yeah. I have lights on and lights off.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I should close my door because I think I'm loud.
Okay. Well, it's 3:04. We'll give. Maybe we should just get started. I want to thank you all for coming, first of all, and say that this is a new working group that we want to try that is mixed departments and mixed interests so that we can really understand how we can make our South Bay Fiber Network something that's really effective and helpful to the cities and the other agencies that are involved in the network. You'll hear more about the status of it and who's involved, but I think that there's an awful lot, no, here comes Christian. There's an awful lot we can do if we're smart and we talk about what could really be helpful to cities. So the purpose of this meeting is to really get you all to talk. But before we do that, I thought the way we would start is that I would, we've got several staff members here from the COG. There's Wally Simbab, our research director, who I was going to say he's our technology person, but he can't get his video to work, so it doesn't really work very well. And then there's Erin Baum, who's been project manager for this project, and Steve Lance, who's our transportation director, and me, Jackie Backrack. So I thought I would invite, we have 3 elected officials on the call, and I thought I would put you on the spot by having you introduce yourself and then saying the reason these 3 were chosen or asked to participate is that in your day job, you do have technology and some expertise, and we wanted to make sure that we got your perspective as elected officials, but also as technology professionals. So I'll start with Mark Henderson. Mark's a councilman from Gardena. Mark, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about what you do and how this might be, what you're looking forward in this network?
Oh, absolutely. Good afternoon, all. I know one Zoom.
Oh, and Mark just froze. Mark, you're frozen. See, if we all had more network capacity, we wouldn't have this problem, right?
He's not at City Hall, don't blame me.
Yeah, I know, Mark, we lost you. Okay. Does he know he's frozen when
Come
I
back
say?
to me.
Oh, okay, you're back. Okay.
I'm back. Okay, I turned my video down. Well, that's one of the reasons why we got to definitely have better fiber in the South Bay.
Right.
So I'm the councilman, City of Gardena, currently serving as mayor pro tem. My day job, I am the regional IT manager for Los Angeles Community College District. I cover LA Valley College, LA Mission College, and Los Angeles Pierce College. So my professional background, I've been in technology probably since the 11th grade at Narbonne High School. So I've been doing it here and there. Why I'm so interested in this project, as we all know, with this pandemic, it's really changed, how we actually function and do business and everything like that. So this is an example where we have an oversaturation of just the infrastructure in the region. So this is a project I think that will help as we meet the needs of the goals of the Measure M to have some good traffic control systems and different things like that. But I think it can dovetail into other infrastructure needs that our communities need as far as crossing the digital divide if there's that issue in those communities. So I definitely would like to see it proliferate to that level as we kind of make sure we meet the initial requirements, since that's the money that's funding this thing. So we want to make sure we don't go too far outside of the goals of Measure M, but I think we can kind of squeeze it in there because it all works to quality of life and reduce traffic and better air quality and service in all our community. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Mark. And we do want you to think transportation, but we also want you to think outside that box as well.
Yes.
And basically, before I introduce next speaker, what we're doing here is we're trying to find opportunities that would be of interest to cities and then figure out how to educate and inform ourselves as to how to make them happen. So I'm going to go on to Michael Kemps. Michael, tell us who you are and what your interest is in all of this.
Hi everyone, Michael Kemps, currently Mayor Pro Tem, City of Palos Verdes Estates. In my day job, I am the CEO and owner of an integration firm that focuses on law firms. So I'm in year 31 in the technology industry, very familiar with infrastructure and applications. Started up as a network engineer and now have 60 employees. So definitely understand the infrastructure issues, and then being obviously involved in the city as an elected sort of bridges the gap and bring these things together. And I'm very interested and happy to participate.
Great, thank you. And Christian Horvath from Redondo Beach.
Yeah, the reason why I asked to be a part of the subcommittee is because I've been working on creating, implementing the whole South Bay fiber network since day one with everybody at the COG, and a lot of you that are actually on this call who were super helpful, Chris and Alex. And so I really want to see it through what I would call like the second phase, right? Which is how we can use this to create more positive connections, both through our cities, application uses, to the point that Mark made. Clearly one of the underlying things we're going to focus on is related to to traffic stuff as it relates to the monies that we got from Metro. But to Jackie's point, I think we should be focusing on a much broader way of connecting our cities in what it is that we actually all are working on in our own silos, but how can we work on them together in a broader sub-regional perspective. So, you know, many of you know I have clearly other interests, you know, in terms of what we can do at our individual level for the cities. But as we move more in the direction of smart cities and what that means to each of us, you know, I think it's better for us to function on what does that mean as a smart sub-region, not just a smart city. So that's it.
Okay, great. So this, as I said at the beginning, this is a committee that is made up. What we did is we invited IT director, public works directors, community development directors, because what we want is we want sort of a look at the kinds of things that cities are working on and how more applications or more ability to do your job better and more effectively would be helpful to you. So let's just go around, and I will, as I call your name, you can say who you are and what city. So Alex Pinto?
Yep, I'm here. Hello, everybody. It's Alex Pinto from the city of Gardena. As you know, I was the loudmouth during a lot of our meetings over the past few years now. You want me to go over what we did, Jackie, or just a hi, hello?
Well, you mean what you've done in Gardena with the network?
Yeah, we can tell you some fun stuff.
Okay, yeah, if you want to do that, sure.
So, as you guys well aware, we fully deployed the fiber, the dark fiber from ADF. We're on the 10 gig line with our 1 gig laterals already fully operational. As far as engagements, what we've done even just past the internet deployment, I've already got a new daycare center running at one of our parks using Wi-Fi capabilities and hosting remote learning and classroom learning for classes and students that have parents that are unable to take care of their kids at home. So we just opened that up as well. So that's already taking it to the next step. As far as community development goes, we've now engaged in active team management for our permit process. So engaging with the public, we now use a kind of bridge using Microsoft Teams to do submittal of their permit files, submit of any kind of things that you would normally come to our counter to do. They're now able to do remotely, either via chat or like you can see through remote video, like you said, because now we have that bandwidth capability. G-Trans is also coming online next year, so as far as using it for transportation, we'll have our entire smart dispatching CAD and remote monitoring of all our vehicle and fleet on this new fiber network as well, hopefully starting next year. So we're already pushing the next step, not just the fact that we lit up as an ISP. So no, thank you guys very much for hanging in, and we just are happy to be up and running, really.
Great, thanks. Terry, you're somewhat new. Terry Hackelman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, this is Terry Hackelman. I'm the IT director with the city of Manhattan Beach, and I'm about 2.5 months in, so I'm kind of in the learning and understanding mode, probably trying to catch up with most of the folks on the call.
Thanks. And you're going to see a lot of people from the same cities, but you guys have been somewhat of the leaders in all of this, so that's why you're here. Chris?
Good afternoon, Chris Benson, IT Director, City of Redondo Beach. We're also up and live on South Bay Fiber Network. Right now, changed it for our primary outbound during the day. It's helped take some heat off of our other connection, business class fiber connection. Because of all the SSL VPN connections, we're averaging about 45 to 50 connections throughout the day. So routing primary outbound on the SBFN is help that. Also using it to routing our at night when we move a lot of data up into the cloud through the SBFN, help take some heat off. Redondo was already well connected. We've got a dark fiber network. We got 15 sites connected, so really just one giant LAN. The South Bay Fiber Network, we connected City Hall, but we also connected North Branch Library as a future use. So for transportation programs and economic development out on that corridor, if you know, as far as transportation systems, if you get to the North Branch Library, we can put you on the South Bay Fiber Network.
Great. Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie Ty. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Manhattan Beach.
Great. And Ted is the chair of our infrastructure working group. Ted?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm on the IWG. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Redondo Beach. Also been in the South Bay working for the City of Torrance for many years on the traffic and transportation side. My biggest interest is integration of this technology into our synchronization and corridor management. I think that's something that's going to be very critical for us to be able to do. And we'll talk to Chris when the need comes around for any of these corridors to come online.
Okay, and let's see, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Manhattan Beach and part of the Terry Carey team.
Great, thanks. And we've been joined by Kevin Kennedy, and we're just introducing ourselves and saying what you do for the city.
Okay, I'm the IT manager at the City of Carson, and we just joined the we just got in the lines for the SBC. I pretty much run their infrastructure and technology for the City of Carson.
Great, great. So okay, so what I thought we would do next, let's see, I'm trying to figure out my notes here. You know, for some of you that might be new to this, this is the start of a project that started 3 years ago, and only 3 years ago. It's sort of amazing, where we worked with the Workforce Investment Board to look at the service that our cities were buying, and we found out they were buying retail and they were buying very little. And so after a series of help from the Workforce Investment Board and actually Supervisor Ridley Thomas, we got funding to do a feasibility study. We found out that maybe if we all worked together, we could actually buy wholesale and get a better deal. And that's exactly what we did. We went out with an RFP, and we found American Dark Fiber, who responded in exactly, several of you were on the evaluation committee. They were actually, they gave us exactly what we asked for, with $1,000 a month for 1 gigabit of service. And then our next challenge, there were two costs. One was capital, one was operating. The cities and the other agencies that join in are paying the operating, but we said for the first phase, we would pay all the capital. And it was a lot of hubris on our part, because we then went to Metro and said we wanted to use our Measure M money to pay for the capital. And they told us absolutely not. And so that was our next battle, and we won that one. And so now we are using Measure M money and paying completely for the capital projects for all of you. So we think, I mean, this is just a convergence of wonderful things that came together, and that's where we are. But I wanted to turn to Aaron very briefly to just share where this is and what the network is right now, and who's up and who's not, and what other subscribers we have. So Aaron?
Sure, Jackie. I'll just share a screen with you all just real quickly. Just a visual is always nice to have. So hopefully this is sharing. Is it?
It's there, but.
Is it? Okay, great. All right. So real quickly, a summary of where we're at. What you're looking at here is a map of the South Bay, obviously. The green is showing you the connectivity of the ring, okay, the core ring of our network. The blue are construction elements to happen. Think of those as lateral connections to additional buildings that aren't connected just yet. And I can go through some of those. But for the most part, all of our cities are now connected to the South Bay Fiber Network. We are up, we're operational, and traffic is going around the ring in both directions. The green dotted lines above going north on the map really indicate how we connect to Metro. And then if you see way up in the top right-hand corner, there's a blue line there. That takes us out to LADPW, okay, and access to the I believe the EIN traffic information system out there, and to another Metro site that's located out in Fontana, believe it or not. So the old saying, if you build it, they will come, is literally happening. We get calls every week or two now about how can we access the network. I should point out real quickly that what's really cool here is like Alex has said, and Chris is already putting into use as well, that the network is being used. I mean, it's not only is it, maybe cheaper per gigabyte, but they're finding applications to use this, and that requires some capacity at the back end, which is something I think we can talk about through this working group. We expect over the next 2 months, probably towards the end of the year, to connect about 35 sites total, including all of our city halls, ancillary sites, as well as other public agencies like the Beach Cities Health District, the Linguist Biomed Center on the Harbor UCLA campus, and other parks and metro sites as well. So it's growing and it's dynamic, and this working group is really important to help us sort of aggregate good ideas and work collectively towards the betterment and use of this network. Jackie, does that work?
What about West Basin Municipal Water District?
Oh, I'm sorry, I left them off the table. Yes. So the South Bay WIB as well as West Basin Water District are going to be connected to network as well. The Water District will have one site in El Segundo at the water recycling facility and at their headquarters. The WIB has 7 locations, which speaks to, if you will, the opportunity for distance learning, education, and training. Again, things to consider when we think about applications moving down the line and how we can partner across agencies.
Yeah, I had forgotten about the WIB myself. Yeah, so we have a telemedicine. If we wanted to bring it to our communities, we have water management, workforce investment, job training, and job creation. So
I should say, Jackie, over the course of the last 6 or 7 months, as COVID has sort of raged its ugly head, we have done some GIS work to sort of geospatially locate potential opportunities where this network might be of service to essential businesses or organizations. So we have maps that indicate where hospitals are, for instance. We know where parks are, as Gardena is doing right now to reach the community, provide access. So there's a lot of potential that we've only just begun to scratch the surface on. The rest is going to be a collective will and actually some structure around how do we actually get through and do those applications.
okay. So, okay, thank you very much. So the purpose of this meeting is not for us to talk, but the purpose of this meeting is for us to talk, to hear from you about things. And one of the things that I neglected to ask is I wanted to ask our 3 council members, for example, where does your council needs education on these issues? You're going to have to approve funding if we want to move forward on any kind of applications. So we want from each of your perspectives where, the IT directors have pretty much an idea of what's going on, but is there something that's been on the public works wish list or the community development director's wish list, or is it something that the council needs education on? So that's the purpose of this working group, is to talk about how we bring the information to you and what information we should bring to you that will actually lead to what we're calling a digital transformation of our cities post-COVID, so that we can use this for online constituent services, for the telework that you might be using, and for other innovations. We've tried to cross disciplines, as I said, so that if somebody has an idea, somebody else can say, well, in my department, that would work this way or better or not at all or whatever. So what we'd like to do is have you share your current practices and what you might what you've heard is possible. You read trade journals. Is there something that you've heard that's possible? Tech talks are the way we're going to bring issues to our colleagues. What topics would be good talks? Who should be the people that do those? And then mobility applications. And maybe before I even start, Steve, there are some mobility applications that we're going to be having already, like LA Ritz. Is there something that you want to say about the beginning mobility applications that are going to happen?
Yeah, I think the principal improvement is real-time signal management and coordination between the freeway and the parallel arterials. I think that there's a real opportunity to move traffic off and on the freeway and down a corridor in a much more real-time fashion. So that takes a lot of data, it takes a lot of coordination, and we're ready to pursue that, but we don't have a project and we don't have the technical consultants, and we don't have cities who are interested along a corridor in making such an innovation happen. So I think, to me, it's an extension of the work that we've been doing over the years in Signal Sync, and that's the first step. The other step that I think we need to worry about, because it'll come upon us, is this growth of microtransit. There's an entire new type of transit that's coming to our cities, like it or not, which is going to change the way that transportation occurs. We've all had years and years and years of fixed route bus services on regular schedules, and the route deviation and microtransit, the opportunities of folks like Uber and Lyft to move people through the system and to have them move on dispatch rather than on regular schedules provides an opportunity, I think, in the South Bay to plug into that network that the private sector is already creating. And I have no idea whether the cell systems that they have today will handle the bandwidth that they need, or whether they're going to have to get into the web or into the network that we have. So I need to learn as much about this as you guys do. It's new to me too.
Okay. Okay. Wally, did you want to say anything before we? He's muted. You're muted, Wally. I don't know. Okay.
One thing I would say is that I'm dark because of Spectrum. They've really been failing me, and I pay so much and I get so little. It just is. I wish I could subscribe to whatever residential network comes out of this. The other thing is that it's really disappointing to me because I put on my dress T-shirt today to do this, and now you can see me. No one can see me, so I'll have to do this another time. Just as well, next time we meet, I'll have my dress T-shirt on, then you can see. I would only just add to what Jackie said, that what we're really talking about is a cultural transformation here. For those of us who've been in the telecom industry for decades, know that this has been a constant sort of theme going way, way back. But COVID has sort of pushed this whole thing forward, as everyone's now discovering that their network services are inadequate. So in general, I think what we're hoping from the working group is that you can become the leaders of a digital transformation, if that's not too bold and too big a goal. But we're going to focus on two main areas primarily. One is applications and sharing what it is you're now doing, as Alex just did with some of it, and then what your aspirations are. And I'll give you an example of aspiration. Steve mentioned the one in the transportation world. And also, it's worth saying, we're going to have to move forward with certain transportation or mobility-oriented applications, because that's how Metro allowed us to use our sub-regional return money to build the laterals. We are obligated to do a certain number of these things, and the signal coordination is one of them. I had one in trying to do the plan for our local travel network. One of the things I discovered is that we don't have really any kind of current traffic counts for the major arterials or the minor arterials. And I know nothing about this. So this is an example of how I am coming to the group and to the IT leaders in particular and say, hey, look, does this network help us put out sensors so I can get, more up-to-date real-time information on the traffic volumes on our major arterials? And I don't know how to do it. I don't know if it's even possible. I don't know what sensors cost. But that's the kind of thing I guess I'm suggesting. This is my problem. Maybe you others would have problems that you want solutions to and you don't know how to do it. And so this would be the forum to bring them forward. The second part is, and the one that's most, I think, current, is our Tech Talk series. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but in more detail. But we're all about education of the council, education of other staff members, education of other departments, bringing them along to use this network opportunity to respond to perhaps the crisis of funding that you're going to face, because use a network and increases your productivity. And so the main delivery mechanism for that are these so-called Tech Talks, which we are hoping to do once a month. And so we'll talk about that later. In a little more detail, but that's kind of what I wanted to add to the whole conversation. And now I think we do want to hear from you all about maybe group buying or group aggregating demand to purchase software or hardware, and any ideas you might have about applications. So that.
The other area, if I can add one more, that we need to think about, and we'd have to convince Metro about, is working from home. This whole revolution post-COVID, if we're going to have 25% of our folks working from home in white-collar jobs where they don't have to go to the office, we're going to need a different communications network than we have today, I believe, just to keep up with the demand, especially if they're going to be moving data. And so I don't know what that means. We got Metro to think about it, but we narrowed our initial scope to include government services and government coordination and transportation. And so we need to think together about what the needs are beyond your individual city in moving data and allowing people to either do business with the city from home or to work from home.
And I want to add to that, we're not just about home. Our sustainability strategy is about neighborhoods and keeping people in their neighborhoods and bringing destinations to them as the, I mean, I think everybody knows public transit has not been wildly successful in the South Bay. We have like a 3% mode share. And so tying everything to high transit, high quality transit corridors really makes no sense here. So we've developed through analysis and regression analysis and all this kind of stuff, what makes up a good neighborhood center. And we're going to try and pound this network into those neighborhood centers so that if you don't, post-COVID, if there is such a thing, that the neighborhood scale will be a place to go recover from being always working or getting distance education or telemedicine or something at home. And we've got designs for this and we've got policy for it and so forth. So let's keep that in mind, that we want to pump up the home's ability, but we also want to pump up the neighborhood's ability to become the focus of.
Okay.
So I have a question in this and sort of thinking outside the box. So we have American Dark Fiber that's coming in, that's supplying feeds to all of our city facilities. And, you know, we're dealing with a completely separate issue right now with Crown Castle. And one thing I learned last week is that Crown Castle can go on any utility pole without permission from anybody because the state franchise now allows that. So for example, they have to give Edison 45 days notice. If Edison doesn't say anything or do anything, they're automatically on the pole. It's granted. They become a joint owner, not just a user, but an owner. And so that made me think, is the same true for American Dark Fiber? And if it is true, is there an opportunity for us to partner with American Dark Fiber so that they have the right to go on utility poles in our cities? And then based on that, they could provide drops to our residents and businesses in a partnership with the city, where the city actually runs, I'll call the business aspect of it in partnership while they're running the network aspect of it.
Jackie, can I jump in?
Sure, absolutely.
Stephanie, you raised a really important point, and it gets right to the heart of asset management and how you might distribute broadband across communities in the most cost-effective way. What I understand is that, and for your first question, is that American Dark Fiber cannot just hop onto a pole. So effectively, they have to negotiate agreements, which should be de facto agreements with, for instance, Crown Castle or Frontier, whomever who owns the pole or the lines. But that's not a given.
So what makes them different than Crown Castle, who right now technically doesn't also serve commercial and residential enterprises, that they're really almost a wholesaler, right? You know, my impression was that they were very similar to what American Dark Fiber is.
Yeah, it's the business model, and I'm pretty confident I don't have the expertise to get into the details of it. I'm dangerous at this moment on, but what I do know is that effectively the business model for ADF acts as a wholesaler, but the way that they do it is either through their own purchase or their own building of fiber, or the leasing agreement where they sort of become a secondary reseller of it, if you will. That said, okay, there's, you know, very creative options in some cities, like if, for instance, Carson has been up to in terms of using their city-owned assets, and American Dark Fiber pulls dark fiber for the city's use and then create sort of a network extension, if you will, for the network. It's a more complicated conversation, but it's certainly one that we should be exploring as a group, individually as cities and collectively in support of the sub-region as well.
And I think we'll try to find out more information about this because it's a good question. I don't know, does anybody else have a comment on this?
Yes, this is Alex.
Alex.
Part of the initial negotiations when we were reviewing them on the board with Chris and a couple others, I think you remember that the deal with Race Communications and ADF was for phase 2 or a later phase was for them to pull lateral connections to local businesses and residents, eventually offering them services. I believe what they were saying was $60 a month for a gig at your home. They actually gave us numbers. Race Communication did.
Right.
That was something that the group definitely should talk about, like Stephanie saying, that would make it more worthwhile for our residents. That'll give Mark a little bit more bandwidth for his house, and I'm sure he would appreciate that. And a little bit more, like you said, because of that new dynamic, because of COVID and because of us being so bandwidth lean in our South Bay cities up until now. Yes, we're running. I do agree the next step is to get everyone else on board. Another thing we were looking at investigating, me and my network designer, was using the lateral connections to create a larger mesh Wi-Fi network that we can provide. Since it's on the dark fiber, we could create a private network ID to hand out to the rest of the cities for them to help push their smart initiatives, like you said, for a lot of these micro travel instances, more live statistical data, live traffic signal monitoring. We did take that to heart, and we were already in the middle of instating a plan to start adding back private IDs for, let's say, our Wi-Fi or even on our LAN to help extend this dark network a lot further, or at least more deeper, like you said, ingrained into the system, ingrained into public areas like maybe a shopping center. So I definitely hope that we take these conversations a little bit more seriously. I even have our community development starting to work on city-owned assets like light poles. Once you can get me that GIS data, I already have a Meraki standing by for that GIS data to help us do a real plan to blanket the city with smart monitor devices and something that I can extend out to the cause.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is, if a city wanted to stop short of building its own fiber network, right, all underground where it owns everything, the pipes, the wires, the controllers, is there an opportunity for a partnership where the build out comes from another entity that has the right to be in the airspace, and that, the city is responsible now for all of sort of the building and the service and those sorts of things? And, it's not obvious to me what that would be either with Race or American Dark Fiber, but something we may want to explore that's above and beyond, Frontier and Charter as the only service providers, so that somehow the city itself is a municipal provider.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Race a few months ago asking about that. And from my understanding of the conversation, right now, they don't have any intention of coming in and providing fiber to the home service off the South Bay Fiber Network. So
Yeah,
Race
be
doesn't?
something new. Yeah.
so
Now
just
that's unofficial. That was from my conversation with one person within Race. But my understanding was they're part of their model for this, I think right now, is providing the ISP services for the South Bay Fiber Network, but not coming in and expanding, to the home beyond it.
Yeah, Chris, just to follow up on that, I've had conversations with him actually as recently as 2 weeks ago about this very same issue. And so on the city's behalf, on behalf of the cities, we're pushing to understand what phase 2 will look like and the modeling for this. And ultimately, again, the complicated sort of thinking or ways that we should be thinking about this in terms of how we leverage city-owned assets. For instance, along the corridor, the Artesia corridor there, it can't sit fallow. I mean, it needs to, the city's invested in a pipe to the library. It has capacity to build out and support business development along that corridor. So the question I've asked is, well, how are we going to do that? And what's the cost of that going to be? All those sort of, well, ultimately will be tools for you and for Manhattan Beach too, and Gardena and others to make those kinds of decisions. So I have this on my list. I think it's something certainly the COG should be following up with. And this group in particular should be leading by asking these kind of hard questions.
Michael, you keep shaking your head. Did you want to say anything?
I'm nodding because I hear over and over and over again residential complaints, in particular about Cox on the peninsula and their ability to support everyone, and what's gone on both, from those attempting to work from home, school from home, do everything else during this COVID period. It was bad before, it's gotten worse. I've tried to help bridge that gap with Cox, but they're falling down hard, and to the ability, to the point that, whether it's race or however this potential second phase might go, not just public areas, but actual residential use. There would be massive demand for this.
Hey, Jackie, I wanted to say something and add to that in regards to the process I would like to do in Gardena, and I appreciate Alex giving us this information. I always like to be collaborative in my approach to different things and everything, so I'm going to ask our IT department to kind of do a presentation in regards to where the South Bay Fiber Network has gone this far. And then we can then have a strategic discussion on what can be done. As we talk about smart cities, I'm thinking of an application I saw where we all have these public waste cans and all the small in the malls and everything and like that, and they're always filling up or overflowing, versus them being beacons to call out when they can be emptied or something similar like that. But and I always let everybody know, I always stay out of Alex's business, although we do the same thing. I let him do his thing. That's the respect that IT people have for other IT folks. Let them run their show. So I appreciate the work that Alex does. But we should definitely present to our colleagues and say, hey, this is what we've done thus far. I don't think we've shown everybody what we've done since we've gotten the money, where everything's connected and everything, and let others come up with some other possibilities of, hey, we could probably do this and do that. We've done some great things at our park, so now we could probably expand with our city facilities being kind of beacons of some sort of Wi-Fi to the business area as residential or something like that, or just have those discussions and everything. But I just thought about something the other day. We talked about best practices, having these trash cans getting emptied in these public spaces versus waiting for the citizens to call and jump up and down, or the businesses to call and, hey, you guys haven't emptied this trash can. But there are those smart cans that beacon out to say, hey, come empty me. And Public Works will like that versus getting hate emails from the council about, hey, you guys aren't doing your job or something like that. So that's just a thought. But I definitely want to do a presentation on what we've done thus far.
When you say a presentation, you're talking about to your council or to the COG or to?
Oh, just me, just to my council, just kind of Alex talk about what he did and everything and all that. So I'll bring it up at our council meeting tomorrow and everything. So it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just something to say, hey, these are the possibilities and the capabilities. Now, what can we envision as a collective body and as our community and everything? So make sure everybody's on board.
Great.
Okay, Mark, I'll go ahead and talk on the spot for you whenever you need.
We'll do it formal. I won't jam you up like that. We'll do it formal. Don't worry about that.
Christian, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. Did you?
No. I mean, clearly, my whole goal is has been to bring eventually municipal broadband to Redondo. For both our commercial and our residents. And clearly, that comes with a ginormous investment, especially to Stephanie's point, if we do it underground. And that's why we've been talking in serial about dig once policies, right? And things that could help maybe curb costs on that. I'm not necessarily bringing that up here because that's always my end goal. For me participating in this body, it's really like, what are we trying to achieve as a group to collectively expand, the application of the network right now in the short term? Clearly, every city is going to have that conversation because, to Michael's point, the residents really want, like, if you talk about this with residents, they're like, shit, get me off Frontier and Spectrum, tomorrow. But from this, roundtable discussion with staff, representing IT and Public Works, I just want to make sure that we, we figure out what can we make happen, especially in the next 6 to 9 months. That's, low-hanging fruit that would really improve, what each of these department heads, whether it's the ones here represented today or community development or, what can we do to really make a dramatic improvement, not only for them as as people who are providing services to the community, but something that actually the community will see a net benefit from as well.
So can I ask a question of this group? You know, it strikes me as that there are, I think Jackie alluded to this early on, there's a couple levels of education, right? There's best practices between professionals and the sharing of best practices across staff. And I think, am I hearing that that's information that the COG could help facilitate in terms of making sure that, you know, what's good for Gardena is shared with Manhattan Beach and the like? I mean, there's any number of ways to take a cut into how we can work our individual networks better, and then collectively we're all gathering steam on that. And then there's another level of information, and that has to do with informing the body politic, if you will, or the other stakeholders in this, so that everybody, you know, we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. Is that another type of service that the COG or this working group can start setting agendas for?
Well, I'm going to jump in and say, I think we have three things on the table. We have the long term. And the long term is, I think everybody wants to figure out how to get to residents and cover the South Bay. That's going to take some work. It's going to take talking to ADF and a lot of other people about what they're capable of and where our network can go. And then what we're looking for today more is really, and I think we should obviously save that, but what we're looking for is more short term. How do we make this this network come alive so that when we go to the councils and we say this is what we want to do, somebody can say, well, now we have joint permitting, or we have this, or we have that. What are some of the applications that we can be creating right now that would give you better constituent services and that would provide you more efficient ways of operating? I just heard today that the county is using drones in their community development department to look at the roofs of difficult buildings and things like that. I mean, you know, there's different kinds of technologies that maybe have been on your wish list, or something that we might be able to all work together to put into the South Bay. And the way we want to start with that is what we were thinking of, and you tell us if we're wrong, is that we would have a tech talk. We have a speaker come in and say, these are the possible applications we can do, and then have cities let us know. Now, and then there's a third, I think, which is really the transportation applications. And Steve needs to work with the infrastructure working group and Ted on defining that corridor and defining the places that we're going to start, because we could be starting that project as soon as possible, at least identifying where those transportation applications are that we can be using. So today what we wanted to do is find out, understanding that the residents are out there, and telework makes it even more imperative, but how do we take what we've got right now and turn it into services that make your cities work better? Anything you want to share? I was going to ask about GIS. Do all of you have enough capacity for GIS? And is there more software that we could get that would be more helpful to cities now that you have more capacity?
In Gardena's case, it's not that we don't have GIS capacity to cover the technology. I have a lack of people here to understand the application. So it's hard to borrow time from any of the planners that I do know internally, because they're very short-staffed right now, you know, with everybody being at home and the extra workload they've gotten during this time. So I feel bad almost asking them to do any kind of plans or layers for me right now. So I don't know, maybe Jackie would be, a question is, how do we get maybe a third party to source out and maybe tag all of our bus stops or all of our light poles, so we know where we can add assets to do this smart device monitoring, smart bus stop monitoring, like you said, to maybe get some of this traffic data, has always been a challenge. I know 5G, everybody keeps talking about 5G, but that space is going to be saturated by AT&T and these private entities. Once again, it's almost getting trapped back into spectrum, which was the whole point of us making the start fiber ring, right? Was to get away from being trapped by these larger conglomerates any way we can.
One of the things that we've talked to the community development directors about is that SCAG is going to be funding us to help with expediting permitting kinds of issues. And we've been thinking of getting a GIS person at the COG that cities could then call on to do some of these applications for you. If that would be helpful to you, let me know, because we're trying to explore whether that makes sense as something we could do away from this project, but just some other resource that the COG could offer.
And Alex, this is Wally. You raised some really good points, and the network makes possible this whole realm of things that we never considered before, which is that we can go out and acquire a South Bay software package. We can begin to share the GIS layers between cities. We can take our experts, which meet every month, I think, in the GIS working group, who could maybe mentor over the video without any travel at all. Any of your planners who would be interested in picking this stuff up in an easy way. So there's things like that are just newly possible, and that's the kind of direction we want to explore.
Definitely.
Anybody else?
Jackie, before we go on, I had one other thing to say. In terms of everyone saying about how crummy the current carriers are in delivering services, the state of California has just come out and under the pressure of this COVID business to really, really double down on broadband for all. And there's going to be money coming, and the governor just directed the California Broadband Commission to come up with an action plan by December 1st. And we're going to try and participate in these talks, and we can take some direction. We can work with you to come up with some ideas that we would take to this, what will surely be new money to extend some of this stuff and to improve services at lower costs to many more houses. Primarily, though, in disadvantaged communities. So sorry, Stephanie.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. It's an emerging picture, and I'll keep you abreast of it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if Stephanie was on the network and had access to a network asset, it wouldn't be prohibited, I don't think.
Well, I think, you know, it's like, I don't know what I don't know, right? And so, you know, I was fascinated actually to learn that Crown Castle could go on Edison's poll and immediately be a joint owner without Edison approving it. Like, that was shocking to me, just based on the history that I had had with Edison and Frontier and in Charter in terms of, you know, our undergrounding programs. So, you know, it makes me ask these kind of questions. Well, can the city somehow fall under the FCC program and be a telecom provider? I mean, is there an opportunity for us to do that? Because if that's the case, it changes the ballgame significantly. You know, right now Beverly Hills is building out a municipal fiber network, and their project was delayed by a year, and it cost them millions of dollars because they were originally going to go into a lease agreement with Edison to be on their poles. And then Edison ended up putting just this amazingly long laundry list of criteria that they could do because they were, you know, the lessor, and Beverly Hills was the lessee. But Crown Castle's not a lessee, they're a joint owner. And so again, like, have we not asked all the questions we should be asking that might change the dynamic about how we can leverage assets that today don't belong to us, but could if we designated ourselves differently?
And could a JPA be that government entity rather than?
Well, could a JPA or, yeah. And so, and again, then it comes back to, how did Crown Castle be able to do that when, you know, they're clearly not a Frontier or Verizon or an AT&T, right? They're mostly a wholesale provider.
Well, what I'm hearing is that we should get, and maybe that's our first tech talk or whatever, is to get ADF out here and to talk about, because they've said to me they have, you know, they can do certain things because they're allowed to by the PUC, and I'm not sure we can, and you know, so, and how is Beverly Hills doing what they're doing? And we do have Magellan under contract still to provide us with some of these structural issues, you know, government structural issues that we should really understand. So maybe that's,
but we should have the PUC regulator
exactly.
come down and talk about it.
But not just the PUC, it's also the FCC. Remember, these guys are under a telecom state franchise, and, you know, or should we be starting the conversation about how we amend that state agreement that allows municipalities to be treated like these telecoms, when we have a telecom, you know, department or infrastructure.
Right.
and we have to, the other thing is, if we do this somewhat soon, the legislative session is starting, at least in Sacramento, and Assemblyman Marisucci is extremely interested in this and in helping us. So he finds this is something he really wants to ride to success. And so I think he would carry legislation. I think he would help us if there was a funding niche for us, but we have to identify that.
So you were asking about applications, Jackie?
Yeah, so I was asking about applications. Are we anywhere with any applications that you would like to, that you've heard about? Does everybody do online permitting in your cities already? Is that something that you're already doing all of that?
Yeah, AMI, you know, automatic metering infrastructure. You know, gas company does it, electric company does it. We're just now starting it with water meters. So it's a major application.
That's something you're doing or you would like to do?
We've already bought all the meters, so we're going to be rolling out the actual automated meter infrastructure. But, you know, we're also playing a big chunk of change for that communication, right? That, you know, eventually if we had our own communication network, we wouldn't necessarily need to.
And that's because you do water, but other cities don't necessarily.
Yeah, but a lot in the South Bay do. So Torrance does, El Segundo does, Manhattan. Who else? So Hermosa does not, Redondo does not, Gardena does or does not?
No.
So provided by Cal Water or Golden State. Okay, Lawndale subcontracted out to Golden State. Hawthorne, I think the same thing. So
yeah, so it's at least those three. Okay.
Carrie, let me ask you, have you seen anything through California APA or any of your colleagues who are looking at sort of uses of broadband to deliver their services or coordinate with other cities or anything like that in the planning arena?
You know, I attended what I could out of the APA conference last week, and I didn't hear anything directed toward fiber network capacity specifically. I mean, there are a lot of ways, you know, people talked about using technology, but the connection to, you know, actually to the capacity or needing more capacity or speed or bandwidth, I didn't hear anything connected in that regard. Although, you know, as a lot of folks on this meeting have said, as we move more and more toward technology and having things that are confirmed real time, you know, I mean, there's the overall demand on the system, and if everybody, planners or, you know, planners, utilities, if every entity who's drawing on the system starts drawing on it, then, you know, everyone's going to experience the broadband or the bandwidth issues, for example, that Wally's experiencing today, right? So our residents are going to have even more worse service than they're looking at already if we actually optimized our operations the way we wanted to. So I think we are ahead of the curve, definitely, but I do think the conversations about the demands are not far behind.
So, so if we were going to be leading a discussion in Tech Talks, what I've heard so far is we really need to know about what the rules are of the game, because we don't know the rules. Is there anything that's for understanding the structure? Is there anything about applications? Do you think that we should have something for like council members on the signal corridor management, or some of the things that the network could do? How could we educate the council members so that they will support us looking at further applications? Any ideas?
Jackie, I would like to say that maybe, you know, we can demonstrate what we've done thus far and some of the different things that some of the cities have done thus far, so everybody can kind of understand that we have been doing something. And then I think that sparks the conversation of what else we can do, because everybody's done something. We just need to demonstrate to everybody that all 16 of us have done something. We just now need to figure out which is that one thing we all decide to do collectively, or what, as we start building out these smart cities.
Hey, Mark, this is Aaron. The COG just hired a new communications person to tell those kind of stories. And I wonder what's your take from an elected official's perspective about access for, you know, at cities, or maybe we do it through a board action or something like that, where we're encouraging building another pipeline, if you will, of those stories, again, that we could disseminate across the cities to stakeholders, you know, in the community as well.
I think that'd be great because, like management always wants to know, well, what have we done? You guys been working in the dark, so we need to know exactly what's happening. So I think something like that would always be helpful as we start talking about it, because as you want to get collaboration and more stakeholders involved, and everybody having a vested interest in modernizing their city to whatever that means for them, and we've demonstrated success, folks are more apt to kind of get on board and community support, and we can do different things, and then we can start looking for different places to get resources to help starting to promote the vision.
Are you
Christian?
telling that story in
Wait, Christian
Gardena?
had his hand up.
I'm sorry.
Let Aaron finish his thought.
I was going to
Aaron?
ask you whether in Gardena and Redondo Beach and are you telling those stories already through your own communication channels?
No, I just heard
No.
what Alex said today.
That's what he was just saying.
Exactly, which was great and everything, and I was just going to think about that, but those are the stories we need to tell, so then you can kind of bring everybody on board, because I do talk about our South Bay Fiber Network, but nobody really knows what I'm talking about. So I think we need to kind of start, professing the good news.
Christian?
Well, yeah, I think Mark's right. At some point we do have to communicate out to each of our colleagues as to what is happening here. But I think the initial low-hanging fruit, and this really is not something we will have a better understanding until like Steve and Ted and Stephanie and all the public works directors figure out where are we going to start with signal synchronization and connection to the ITS, and then what does that mean looking forward to next year's CIPs for each of the cities, and or what are we going to request monies for under Measure M, project wise, what monies are even available right now. Those are that conversation now that everybody's approved it and it's installed. That's an easy place to start, aside from Alex, who's clearly already kind of getting ahead and doing some really interesting things that are related to COVID. I think we definitely should be communicating out, and whether we want to do that with a unified message that you're just sending out to each of the cities, and maybe peppering it in with some examples to Mark's point. Here's what Gardena's doing. If any of the cities have specific examples of things that they're just achieving internally thus far as a way of connecting to the network, then maybe that helps get a conversation going. Or for us, like in Redondo, a conversation suited to this would be a strategic plan, which will be in late October, early November. So,
Jack, I wanted to add one more thing. I think we need to just highlight the fact that, doggone it, we got the ring connected and it's working. That's something that should be celebrated right there. The fact that we embarked on this journey and we've actually made that milestone. Probably a lot of tears and crying and everything, but we got there. I think we should celebrate that as a region, that, hey, we've done it thus far. So now, again, let's build on this success to do some of these other things. So that's an amazing thing.
And
Mark,
it's saving you money.
We've actually been pushing off this big grand event we want to have, because we were hoping we wouldn't have to have a virtual one. But I think that we're going to have a virtual event probably in October timeframe to thank. We have many people to thank, including Assemblyman Marisucci and Mayor Butts, who got us the money at Metro, and a lot of other people. And so we need to. The reason you don't know about it is we've been waiting for this huge event, which it never happened. So we're going to have to do that, and we're going to be working on that. And I know ADF wants to do that as well. Christian, you have your hand up again. Nope. Oh, it's still up. Okay. So what I'm not hearing from you, and so, we've been talking about, we as a staff have been talking about these tech talks, having educational sessions to talk about what the potential of the network is. I'm not hearing that that's something that you're waiting for and that you think would be helpful. Is that true? Are we going down the wrong road, I guess is what I'm asking.
Jackie, this is Ted. Part of it for me is there's a lot of components here, right? So you have this ring now that's available to us. In the olden days, when we talked about signal sync and signal connections, it was gap closures. Where do we have gaps of communications of information? But we always had to hit a node that was connected to a telecom. That's no different than what Stephanie is talking about with her water infrastructure system. When you want these remote read systems, they're going to be connecting to some sort of a telecom line that's going to bring you back the information. For us, whether it's, we don't have our own water, but we have our own sewer and storm drain systems that have significant pump stations. Those pump stations are interconnected now with data that comes back to us. A lot of that data currently goes through a telecom system. It's not directly connected to our own fiber network. The real change is going to be trying to take away, you know, our reliance on the telecom systems and trying to take advantage of this for any of our infrastructure. Signals are a significant part of that. And, you know, in years past, having to have fiber networks to be able to provide the bandwidth necessary for video systems to come through, for communications on data, whether it be data collection and or reprogramming of those systems. That was pretty critical. And it goes the same for any of the infrastructure that we have, whether it be sewage, storm drain, water, you name it. That's all infrastructure and communications that's going to be going back and forth. Even for us, the question about the GIS systems, we've got tablets or iPads that our field personnel are needing to use in order to access the GIS. The GIS system itself is very robust. It's got a lot of data, a lot of information. It's the communication between those field units and what's in our system here that's critical. Today, we have to rely on each of those iPads to have a cellular connection. That cellular connection is going to have a monthly rate that you're going to be charging against. If we wind up with a mesh network that's taking advantage of this fiber network that's going to be throughout our cities, then it's not just public works, it's public works, all safety personnel, public works inspectors, building inspectors, you name it. All of them are going to be integrated into that. And the real cost savings are going to be in the annual or monthly subscription costs that we have to basically pay on today. So I think this is going to have a significant benefit to us. We have to break it down. Stephanie's point about being able to send this out to the masses, becoming a utility company, so to speak, where you are your own telecom and needing to share that space on utility poles, as does Crown Castle or Spectrum or anybody else. That's a right we have to explore, because if that becomes an opportunity, it's a significantly lesser opportunity than it is for us to have to build that underground infrastructure in order to bring it out there.
Okay.
Jackie, I would like to address the process question you're asking. And it seems to me that the tech talks, it seems to me that in the COVID era, what we've all learned is the power of Zoom and how people, and certainly as much as I've been involved in this for decades, I do much more in terms of streaming video of whatever it is I want to know. I go look for something that's got a streaming video. And it seems to me we should proceed with this as fast as we can with as many of these talks as we can, and then put the links up so that anyone can stream the whatever tech talk that we've had. And I think focusing on case studies, I think Alex and Gardena talking about what he's doing. In Gardena, I know that Chris is talking about putting that North Library on Artesia and doing economic development around it. We should start talking about these things as case studies of what we're already doing, even while we have other experts come in and talk. So I made a list, because we're sort of down the road in this tech talk business, and maybe this will prime the pump. In 2017, we had a guy named Tim Downs, who was a sort of a network technology educator, and he gave a tech talk called Wireless Small Cells, How Municipalities Are Key to the 5G Revolution. Well attended. Then he followed that up with the Municipal Wireless Master Plan, Best Practices, Considerations, and Strategies to Manage Public Infrastructure for Wireless Coverage and Capacity. Then some of us went on a tour of Equinix, which introduced us to edge computing at their facility. And so other current ideas is Callie Fogel and Ritz, and Steve can fill us in on what that is. Equinix, the road to the cloud, city services on the web, smart cities in terms of Internet of Things, big data, and AI, distance education, telemedicine experiences, increased value of existing capital projects by making them smarter, smarter transportation and vehicle to everything connectivity, smarter lighting, smarter city applications, and immediate return on investment. Those are some of the ideas that we've been kicking around various people propose them. But I think proceeding with Tech Talks as fast as we can and getting them up on the internet for streaming is the best way to get council people and other department heads to start paying attention to what we've got here. Any comments on that?
I'll jump in. I absolutely agree with you, and I think, you know, at least thinking of my own council, and I don't know of others, but I say this respectfully, we lack, with the exception of me, because it's my bailiwick, we really lack technical knowledge. There is none. And so, you know, thinking through what makes sense and what's possible, in particular in the collaboration across cities, right? Comparatively, Palos Verdes Estates is a small city, right? So I think about things like, wow, how can we deal with shared applications? How can we collaborate together? Because some of the larger cities in the South Bay certainly have the ability, both staffing, funding, and everything else, to stand up larger applications. How can we best take advantage of cloud resources? Not to get too far into the weeds, but our city has a server rack that's sitting in a basement of a police department that is under water lines and a sewer line. It's ridiculous. I'm embarrassed to even have my name associated with it. So there's a lot to be done, and we all have funding challenges associated with it. But to your point about the TED Talks, to your point about the Tech Talks being available in particular for council members and being shared out, that's not too technical, but shares success stories. I think there's a lot of value.
It's a good point, Michael. If I could, I think since I often have to do a lot of the wrangling for these things, what level are we talking about here? Because you know, it's sitting at this virtual table that we have are folks that are in the weeds and who could probably stand a healthy dose of how does stuff work and what are what are the systems and practices to do this. That's the IT side, and then there's the policy side. You know, I need information just so I can understand the big picture, right? So I think that's part of the issue that we have in terms of trying to figure out a series going forward.
I think in between those two things is the practical side. How does it come together? How does it work? You know, what success have other cities had? You know, it's nice. It's nice that you've put in infrastructure that you can tell me is a fiber network. And if I'm not technical, I look up and I say, wow, that's impressive. But what does that mean to me? What can I do with it? How will that help my city? How is the South Bay working together? Well, you know, what does that actually mean?
You know, one of the things we were going to do before COVID, famous last words, right, was we were going to have a tour of Equinix. Equinix is the point of presence or whatever. Yep. And we were going to show people what was there and how racks were stored there. And how you could, you know, reserve your space and they would take care of your files or whatever. I mean, with short of a tour, having somebody like Equinix come and talk about what a point of presence is and what it would offer this, what it does offer this system, is that helpful? Do you think? Do you all understand what that is? You probably all do, but.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you don't, Carrie? I mean, I'm wondering if, and would that benefit council members to understand why we're connected and what to do? For example, when you mentioned the rack, until I went there, I didn't even know, you know, I didn't know about a rack. I don't know any of this stuff. So would that be helpful?
I'm not sure how many current council members have even gone to their local IT departments, and maybe they could, you know, probably get an introduction there, to public safety there, or whatever. But I think that would be a good trip. I always like seeing new data centers, but yeah. I don't think they've had a tour of the services that they're responsible for in their own city.
So go see your own local IT.
Go see your own local IT, your public works, your public safety, you know, kind of, you know, you're in charge of all this stuff ultimately. So you should see what it's about.
And how many IT directors right now in the room are now scrambling to clean their offices? or is that just me?
Michael, can you asked three good questions. Do you have answers to them? Could you answer the own questions that you just posed?
Which ones would you like to address first?
Well, you were talking about, you were saying that the council doesn't understand what the network is, how the cities can collaborate to use it. I mean, can you answer those questions? Because if so, we'll make a video of you. I
mean, I have interests. I'll give you some. Shared use of software and SaaS solutions across a fiber network. You know, do we all have to have our own individual line of business applications? Can any of those be shared? Can we share a permitting system? Can we, you know, obviously it requires separation and or integration, et cetera. So, you know, am I familiar in this space with those vendors and what products are available? No, that's not my bailiwick. But, you know, to Jackie's point, you know, does it make sense to show council members what it looks like to have a bunch of blinking lights in a rack? Probably not. Does it make sense to find other cities that have collaborated like this and or application vendors that can or do provide shared services? You know, does an OpenGov do that? It requires a little bit of research, I think, or knowledge outside of my own relative to apps. But, you know, it would seem to me like we're all, you know, now that that the infrastructure is there to tie everybody together, that's fine. Where does it make sense to use collaborated, integrated services together so that we're not reinventing the wheel individually over and over again?
I think we can do that. I think those are really good ideas. Also, Equinix is probably a good organization to talk, because when we were there, they said, hey, we're a real estate company. When you're talking about your rack being underwater somewhere, they store it, maintain it, protect it from, you know, Russian invasion, all of it.
I get it.
And it's pretty cheap. And
I doubt the Russian invasion part, but I get the rest.
Or maybe not. They're a near-term cloud. I mean, they're geographically close to us, and they have that's edge computing. It's their own cloud right there, and they have a whole array of services. And Aaron, there was another company that's their partner that we could bring in to talk. So that's maybe makes some sense. It's a little more technical than for your council people, but there's some good questions they could answer.
I wonder
If you
if
guys go to that point, let me interject a little bit. Make sure you do bring in all the apples into the conversation about, since we are government entities, having too much in the cloud, I'm sorry, I'm a little old fashioned to say, is probably a bad idea for disaster and emergency operations, but hopefully we can get to that one day.
so. As a starting point, would it be important for us to create almost a curatorial service for the COG region, where we start pulling together the different presentations that you guys may have seen in conferences and such, and we have a resource, both technical and policy, of these kinds of presentations and speeches? Would you go to it to look for an answer, or would it come up if you were searching?
I think so, and also like my councilman Mark was speaking earlier to technologies as far as smart monitoring or assets, for instance, out in the field. Another person, I think Stephanie was saying about how they're deploying smart meters, but without an actual infrastructure of their own. Maybe getting people in that can provide us solutions or present to us technologies that may help bridge that gap, so we can maybe start building our own mesh network, maybe at an agreed rate. Though the state contract's okay, I'm sure all of you have dealt with those fun things, but there's definitely more breaks that we can get, especially maybe planning just like we did for this ring, as far as expanding our network to provide us that infrastructure to maintain these things. There's still cost, there's still a monthly expenditure with our infrastructure. Getting our council members more educated on that maybe could be another step, like you said, instead of a technical conversation, more on an understanding of what it actually tangibly gives someone, for instance, to have a mesh network in their city, with direct examples and maybe some other case studies that we can maybe show them. And that's something Jackie and Aaron, you guys can probably reach out and see. Like when we did the presentation for the dark fiber ring, right? We went and looked at other case studies when that was accomplished as a real goal and not something that was more fictitious like Google Fiber.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and because I don't want, I'm assuming we're done about 4:30, and I don't want to abuse your time. So a couple things. I think that we'll take these ideas back, and any other ideas you have, or things that your city does. I mean, we heard Redondo does sewers, Manhattan does water. Is there, and the Peninsula cities might be interested in more joint applications. We'll take these things back, but I wanted to know, is this a working group that works? Do we have the right people here? Do you want to, how often do you want to meet? Do you want to meet as needed, monthly? We were thinking, Wally keeps saying Tech Talks monthly. I'm not sure we're going to have the capacity to do that. But at least on some regular basis, we'd like to bring some kind of technical expertise to the group. Do you have any feelings about this committee and how you would like it to interact?
I'm good with this committee. I think maybe a quarterly tech talk would be good as we get some content to present, and maybe bi-weekly meetings just to see where we are on different things. If folks have something they want to come back and have share with the group, but I'm okay with that. But then I'm open to the majority of whatever the group would like to do.
You're saying bi-weekly meetings of this group?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Any other? It is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, okay. That's great. I usually like, monthly meetings fine too, but I was trying to, sure I got some work ethic.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Is this helpful? I mean, IT directors, are we in your square, or is this helpful? I think people like development directors and Carrie, I think, could learn a lot more about what the network means. I've been saying to them, tell me what your applications are, but now I'm not so sure we really have made it very clear what we're talking about in the first place. Public works directors have a lot to do to figure out how we can make the transportation components come alive. So we need to energize all of those different places. Thoughts on how often? Should we invite the other people that aren't here, are the other agencies, but I thought we'd keep it to cities at this point. Any thoughts? Other thoughts?
I'm just, so for my schedule, I'm going to say my bandwidth, it's going to be tough every other week. I'm probably a monthly would better suit what everything I have to deal with right now. But if you do every other week and, if the topics are different, I could probably make I'm sorry, yeah, if you do every other week, I could make every other meeting if the topics are arranged that way to include like a broader inclusion of community development or policy level discussions.
And Stephanie?
Yeah, I think we probably don't need these any more than monthly. We have so many other types of meetings that cover and overlap. But I think, one of the things that I would like to focus on first, and, this is pose the question to the group, is our primary focus now to educate council members, or is our primary focus now to do some investigative work to find out what our suite of possibilities are to be able to come back to council and say, these are the kind of things we're looking at. So again, it comes back to, what rights do we have under the FCC or the PUC? Who controls, what does that legislation say? And kind of just understanding the basic framework of a fiber system. And, then I think that would give us some better information to decide where can we figure out where we can plug into that framework for things that work for us.
Okay. Why don't, okay.
Stephanie, I would say it's broader than giving education or helping the council peoples learn stuff. I think across the board, as Carrie just said about the California American Planning Association.
Right.
This is not on the professional radar of the various professions. And I think it's about, and Carrie, you could advise, but I think going to, because I attend the bi-monthly meetings of the community development directors, somehow bringing to them these different options and so forth. I think it's an important mission of what we're doing here. So each of you in your own way then has colleagues. The elected officials have their own colleagues on our board and in their city councils. Helping you bring them along is something we'd like to do. Helping the department professionals bring along your colleagues is something we'd like to do. And then in addition to that, Stephanie, the second thing you said was looking at expand into applications and rules and regulations and so forth, so we have a better idea of what's happening and what we're capable of doing. I think those are the two things that we're trying to accomplish.
Would it be, okay, what I'm thinking of, first of all, is this a good time? Is the 3 o'clock on the third Monday a good time? It is for Mark, it is for Michael. It's okay. So let's just say if we're going to do this, I'm very calendar driven. That would be the 19th of October at 3 o'clock. Okay, 19th of October. So and because I'm talking monthly now, and what we can try to do for that meeting is have people at the meeting, darn it, have people at the meeting who can talk about what the primary responsibility issue I think is important. At the same time, we'll try to have a tech talk idea of whether to go to have Equinix or somebody come and have a date, but not necessarily have that talk. You know, we can schedule one, but that'll be a different kind of a thing. So we're going to work on both of those things. I'm just saying that to Aaron and Wally and Steve, and then also in the meantime, maybe Steve and Ted can flush out how do we bring this corridor alive and what do we need to do. That would be for the next meeting. Does that make sense to everybody as a start? And if there's somebody on your city, at your city that you think should be here, please let them know. If there's another city, there's a lot of cities missing. I don't want a huge group, but if there's somebody you know that's in another city that's really interested in this, please let me know. With that, I'm going to thank you all for participating. And that I know that I personally have so much to learn that it's going to be very good for me. So I really thank you. And October 19th at 3 o'clock will be the next meeting. And I'll send, if you have ideas, please don't wait till the next meeting. Let me have them. Okay? Thanks so much.
You want to stay on the Zoom?
Oh, okay. And so everybody leave the Zoom.
All right. Bye.
You can, Steve, stay on the Zoom. Okay.
Bye, Alex.
Okay, so, oh, and then Wally's this giant hole. Okay, so I don't know what the hell a mesh network is. I don't know what they're talking about. Do you?
Vaguely, but not enough to comment on it.
I know, I mean, it sounds like a mesh network would get them connected to everything. The problem we're having is we don't have any expertise in this.
No,
and
look, I have a mesh network here as my router. Sets up a mesh network, which is as opposed to it emanating from the router, and there's a RF signal that goes out and connects stuff. There's different satellites that create a mesh as opposed to a broadcast. So it is a way of distributing Wi-Fi, I think, over a wider spatial term.
It's actually it starts back at the box, at the fiber. So what you're doing is you're jacking really in a very simple way is you're taking a big broad pipe of gigabyte of fiber of broadband, and you're splitting it up into smaller packets and sending it out to different places through Wi-Fi. So it's not just hardwired now; it's in the air.
It's a way of distributing the basic connectivity without wiring it.
Okay, so how much does it cost? How do you make that happen?
It depends on the technology you use and the space that you want to fill. If it's citywide, it would probably not be that cheap, but it's cheaper than wiring everything.
Exactly.
So what about, so do we have, I mean, can Magellan do the next meeting with American Dark Fiber?
I think, wait, we're talking about two things now. Let's make sure we're straight. One is what you're going to present at the meetings with these folks. The other is what you're going to present as a so-called tech talk.
Right.
And I think the meeting should proceed with what it is we've learned from the last meeting going forward. And perhaps at the next meeting, you didn't get much help in terms of what actually you want, which was help them do the tech talk schedule. So that didn't work. But I think that we got some clues to start with. And I think the Equinix, Aaron, what's the other name of the company they work with? Is a good.
It's their competitor, Wally. It's called Evoke.
Was it a good meeting?
It was a start.
Yes.
I thought it was as good as it can be, since no one knows what they're doing.
This is just my sensibilities around this. I think you have multiple audiences at this meeting here, and if you're asking them to give you guidance, I think as you suggested earlier, then we have to frame it for them, and they will say yes or no or whatever.
Right.
And the guidance should come, I think, in a couple of different ways, and Wally alludes to it. One is there's technical stuff that we can be supportive of for, like what is a mesh network, or how do you build a mesh network? And we could do it through case study with Alex, and we could do it with vendors, and that's all of a sudden that's content rich, and that's directed to IT directors. There's a higher level piece, and that is now you got a fiber optic network and you want to do community broadband. How do you do it? What does that mean? You're muted.
Jackie, you're muted.
You're muted.
You said a mesh network would be directed to IT directors, but there's two levels of that. Because once you have a mesh network, then the others, I mean, if you explain what a mesh network is, you can almost have a first half hour hop on for the general and then the specific. Because you want to know what the potential is of something like this, so that Public Works and the polls and the things, they can all think about all the stuff they could do.
Yeah, that's true.
So you want everybody to be involved somehow in all of this.
Yeah, but Aaron points a good point, which is we're trying something that's never been done, which is we're crossing silos. We're asking them to get out of their silos and come and sit and listen to stuff that they don't know anything about. And it's you know, it's very hard. We need put some thought into this. We're not going to be able to settle it today, but we have a experience of trying to do it. And I would say it was moderately successful. It really comes down to, as a beginning step, is the IT business. I think the thing that there was consensus about among everybody, Carrie and your elected official and all of it was, and Stephanie is wrong, it is a PUC issue. It was like the state used to have, all cities could franchise cable TV, and then the state usurped it and said, no, we'll have a state franchise. The reason I think, and I didn't want to speculate, but the reason that Crown Castle, I think, can get on the polls is because they've followed some state utility guidelines and have gone through. You told me many times that reason that we wanted ADF and to do this is because we would have to be a carrier ourselves. We would have.
Yeah, but ADF said they were, or they could do this. That's why I was getting very confused, because
we got to get the PUC in here to explain it.
Right.
And that's where that's a springboard to getting into maybe Dave Daigle talking about why he wouldn't do it, what are the economics of it and so forth. But I think everybody is in agreement that you've got a backbone that could be expanded if we knew how to expand it. And
well,
they're really concerned about consumer services.
My feeling is the next meetings should have the PUC, Magellan, and ADF. Should have all of them.
I don't
not
think
here,
so.
The Tech Talk, not here, not for these guys, a Tech Talk.
Oh, no, I'm not sure a Tech Talk. I don't know. I think these guys have to understand it first before we do a Tech Talk.
No, they're part of the audience for a Tech Talk.
I think, Jackie, they laid out actually a structure for the Tech Talk that I think might be helpful, and that's the case use and specific to South Bay. And so, you know, you could almost envision asking a vendor or even a city to, you know, give us what you're doing, and then bringing in vendors or, you know, applications people to talk about the how do you do it, or even the policy from a policy perspective as well.
But Aaron, I didn't feel like anybody, is there enough going on besides Gardena? I mean, to actually make case studies?
Well, it's a start, and but there's also another piece to this too, and you mentioned it more than once, and that's the Ritz and Metro piece. We have stuff on the table, and one of them is that we have to bring Cali to the table, and for our cities. That satisfies contractually part of our obligation to Metro. So that's a Tech Talk. You want to call it a Tech Talk, but that's certainly a very directed. How do you use a certain application for your city, and what do you get out of it?
Is then that an IWG thing?
It's more than that, because it starts with IWG with signals and such, but Cali's mission spans the world of TDM, so it could go all the way down into planning, it could go into community development, all that good stuff.
But again, Jackie, this is a working group. This is not a place to have presentations of outside people at. That would be recorded and done live with a Zoom audience, but then be recorded and then promoted around that says, hey, here's the PUC talking about the rules. Everybody who's interested can go listen to it if they weren't there live. The working group should be about the work that we're trying to accomplish. And so it should be talking about the talks you're planning. It should be about process. It should be about, I should be presenting things I'm learning from the state and the money's available. You know, it's that sort of thing that we should be doing with the working group, not external speakers, except maybe occasionally.
What I got out of this is that they don't know the potential enough to give us the guidance we need.
That we've got to guide them to giving us the guidance. Let us help them help us.
Yeah, but somebody like PUC, it seems to me, would be a pretty boring, horrible Tech Talk that I'm not sure anybody needs to hear about until we know what the potential is in our specific network. With the PUC,
I mean, that's right, but maybe it could be interesting. who would be the right person? In other words, a telecom attorney, sorry about Michael Jenkins, would be a good thing to talk about. Would be a good person to talk about what the municipal role, the stuff I said about municipal role in wireless, I thought was really interesting. And Tim Downs did a great job of sort of explaining it. But I think it's still a relevant discussion, the 5G rollout. Where are we?
Hey, Wally, I think this is my feeling anyway. At this point, it feels a little bit like we're a little bit of the cart before the horse. I think the question almost feels like it should be, so you have a fiber optic network. What does that mean for you and your city? And it's laying that out in very basic, layered, if you will. Okay, there's the high level of the potential, but then there's sort of specifics, which Stephanie was talking about, and there's opportunity. There's a business model in play right now, and that's ADS, which we signed on for, right, where they're reselling essentially wholesale to us effectively. And how do we leverage that? What does that mean, and how do we leverage that? And I think that informs what phase 2 is, or what all this economic development stuff might be. That's how our network is going to be, business-wise, is going to operate for the near term. So let's get these people dialed in on what that is, and then they can understand how they can have that kind of conversation with us through ADF or directly through.
That's why I don't think it's a tech talk. I think we've got to educate this group of people first.
Everything you do with this,
I mean, the IT directors didn't even know the answers, it sounded like. They didn't step up.
This group is a tech talk, even if there's no person talking, because you're going to record it, and it could be put up on the website as click here to see the first meeting of the working group.
Oh, this is all being recorded too. Did we want this recorded?
That's
anyway.
good. That's fine.
So Steve, do you have any thoughts?
Seems to me that we have an opportunity to get folks to work together on common applications that go beyond their individual borders.
Right.
And if we can get our IT guys to understand what that coordination is and what those projects are, we would have a path forward. If we're going to do a general ed program on the website or on the internet or where we're going to do it, that's a different task. And we have two markets there. One is the general economic development guy and the planning person. And the other is actual work with the IT guys on what it takes to set this up. And we've been saying multi-layered, but it's actually two separate audiences. The IT guy doesn't care what goes over his path. He just wants to be able to move the data. He's not the content guy. And the economic development people don't have any idea how to organize content to put it over the web. So we've got two different audiences and two different distinct tasks, I think. We need to educate both, but we need to educate them as to their role in the city. And if an economic development guy wants to do a program, I almost asked, are you guys seeing this content as being competitive or collaborative? Do you really want to have multi-jurisdictional content where the COG actually cares for it and keeps it? Or do you want to have your own competitive advantage in your city and not do a collaborative thing? Jackie would have killed me if I had asked that question.
But I didn't hear anything specific enough to ask that question.
Well, it'll come. There will be people who don't share because they can see what they could do competitively. And the question is, at the policy level, are we creating a South Bay program with a technical advisory committee and a policy advisory committee? Or are we creating two different audiences that are not particularly connected? And which is a priority for us? It may not be the IT guys that is our priority. Maybe the policy guys that pay for it, not the IT guys that have to run it.
Steve, I think that you described it really well. The challenge, I think, is that, and this is the cultural shift and change that has to happen for this stuff to sort of stick and really be there, for there to be a collective action, is cultural. I mean, you got to get these folks out of their silos to think about from the IT from a planning perspective or an economic development perspective. Yeah, they all have to be at the table, and that's really the only way this stuff has some legs.
So the policy stuff could be handled by our new communications person.
How does she handle policy?
because she can do the communications with the people who are trying to figure out what content needs to go over the internet. She can deal with this channel, as it were, as a communications channel, and she can deal with the content that people want to share. The IT guys are dealing with the technical ability to move the data. They're two totally unrelated areas of expertise. And we don't have somebody who can run the IT stuff except Wally. I guess Aaron could do it, but all of us keep saying we don't know enough about it to run the tech side because we're not IT guys.
Well, I mean, we also could up Magellan and give them more to do in this area. If we don't want to get our own, in-house person that has more background.
I'm reluctant to use Magellan because I think they're pitching themselves.
Because what?
They keep pitching themselves rather than doing actual work.
I'm not sure that we know enough to do that.
Know enough to do what?
To do what Steve just said. I don't know that we know. I don't know whether Magellan would do a good job or not. I'm sick of listening to Jory, and Joe might be a better choice. But I think with your new person, Colleen, and to answer the question about the ribbon cutting probably should be a 30-minute video broken into 3 10-minute sections in which the thank you goes out to in its own first opening to Meritsuchi, and they're all invited. MRT is invited to make a statement, and that's a separate thing, and you can skip it if you want when you go to watch it. But then there should be the ABCs. What's a primer on the South Bay Fiber Network? Well, okay, it's really about, and I'm not sure that Carrie and the rest of them understand this, it's really about getting to the internet and using the cloud. And it's about, there's no applications for point A talking to point B. So if the Beach Cities Health District wants to connect to the Beach Cities, they have to buy transport circuits and not go out to the internet, but go directly. Does everybody know that? And what are the applications? What are the ABCs of this? Who is ADF? Who's Race? Race is marketing this today. When I was talking to Joe, he said, we've kind of boxed ourselves in by letting Race be the marketing agent. Maybe we don't want him to be the marketing agent. And I've brought up to you and to others the question of, we're now renting this space. Maybe we should start talking to cities about dig once and gradually assembling our own fiber network out of what they've got and get off of that and lose Race as the marketing agent. I mean, these are some of the interesting policy issues going forward, but I think it starts with what is the ABC of the South Bay Fiber Network? How does it work? What are you paying? What happened? There's a lot of stuff to just go over that's just basic. And Dave could do some of it and Joe could do some of it, but we got to be able to edit it when it's shitty.
Okay. I think you make an interesting point. We have to, Aaron, you and I and Colleen, I guess, have to sit down and we have to figure this out. And maybe a video is the right thing. And maybe we get spots from Meritsuchi and Jan Vogel and all these other people that
everything is video today. Everything.
And then as we're doing it, we hand them whatever Dave Daigle has to hand them. So anyway, so we figure all this out. And it becomes a PR video for the whole, for the fiber.
Yes.
So it's not just a thank you, it's a PR video for the fiber.
And it's an explanatory one so that people who don't know anything about it, I mean, I think Steve or Aaron just said that nobody, or your guy Michael, by the way, I thought I didn't expect much from him, and I thought he was actually pretty good.
No, he was good. I thought he might be arrogant, but he wasn't.
No,
Michael,
he was good.
Michael, I used to carpool Michael. He lived in our neighborhood, and I would take him in my carpool. Anyway,
you're giving away your age, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I know, it's a little bit weird.
But
So
Colleen could help write a script. We could lay this out and then fill it in with people that could speak to these points, and then we would not necessarily listen to all of Dave Daigle's. I mean, if you see anything on TV anymore, it's that nobody speaks for a very long period of time. There's a cut between different speakers making, related points. It's
Wally, you can do it's get creative on this. You could do a little bit of both, right? You could have stuff in the can. You could have people on site somewhere with shovels. You can do all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, it takes
okay,
some
so I
yeah.
think we should work on that. And I think that's the way to do it, Aaron.
Jackie, that's the answer to what is the ribbon cutting? What is the big event? Is it's a
Right.
video event that
And it
explains
should,
the thing.
and it should be in about a month. I mean, you really should get it done. I don't know if we can get this video done that fast, but we really should try.
I don't think
because
so,
we
but you can try.
we
Talk to
should try.
Colleen.
So, Aaron, maybe, have you met Colleen yet, Aaron?
At our staff meeting
Okay.
for
well,
about
then we
30
have-
seconds.
Yeah, we have to get into, Colleen's doesn't know a thing about any of this. So, okay, so for the next meeting, I still say that this group needs to be educated on who's what and why the Crown Castle has the polls and ADF doesn't. We have to have that, we have to have answers to that. And I would rather, I don't know if we want PUC at the meeting or if we want ADF at the meeting. Maybe Dave Daigle comes to this next meeting and gives them a sort of a 101 on who's who and who the players are. I think,
I'm sure the PUC has a statewide information office.
yeah, but I'm sure, but I don't think the PUC is going to be as directed as Daigle will be. I think he'll be more honest and more open.
I think I think we have to acknowledge it's a business. At this point, it's whatever what we're talking about beyond the municipal connectivity here and the and those applications are municipally driven. It's a business, and there's opportunity for cities to get on board with it and participate. And there's a model that we really don't understand. I've been pushed on Race Communications and Dave to get us some transparency on what that's going to look like and where they're tapping, trying to tap into the South Bay. And this is like the rubber meets the road, come to a meeting and tell us exactly what we got for our money. Okay. And you can give us a high level on the application side, and then what the secondary, and tertiary kind of opportunities are that our network now will provide for. And Dave can easily address the CPUC, the regulatory stuff. That's what he does.
And I think, oh, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm done.
I was going to say, I think I actually have a meeting with Colleen tomorrow, so I will talk to her about this.
But I think we should start, first off, we should talk to Daigle about what it is we're interested in learning from him and get his.
Right, we should learn.
Ask him to give us an outline of what he could talk about, and including race and the services being provided by race. We should pass that past Joe when Dave is done and say, what would you add to this? I think we should go on the PUC public information page and see kind of the stuff they're saying. And if we can tease out someone, because it would be more, you can't just rely on Daigle to give the answer. We've seen enough of this already that the official word coming from Sacramento might be, I don't care. I mean, if it turns out they're superfluous, then they are. But let's get from Dave what he would talk about. Let's ask Joe what he thinks about what Dave would talk about. And let's at least look at the basic information page that the PUC has about regulating networks.
I think we should do it in the other order. I think we should ask Joe what he would ask Dave to talk about.
Okay, fine. And then give it to Dave and see if he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have one of the questions to ask Joe is what role does the FCC have in any of this? Because Stephanie wanted to know the FCC's role. So we need to find out the PUC, we need to find out the FCC, we need to find out all the designations and what the designations allow, why somebody like Crown Castle can put something up on a pole and be an owner. So those are the questions we want to ask. And then we want to ask Joe, is that all the questions? And then I think we go to Daigle.
Okay.
Who's going to do this?
Well, I was talking to Joe earlier, and he's going to give us some dates to Zoom next week. So why don't we use that Zoom meeting? He's all excited about how we allocate the remaining funds as a matter of policy to the next tier of subscribers. And he was saying, oh, look, it can be first come, first serve, and we pay for all of it like we did. Or it could be allocated 50% and you pay the others. I said, why don't we take an average of what everyone has spent in terms of laterals and pay the average, and if you're further away than that, then you have to pay the difference. In other words, there's different schemes to allocate that money to the next set of hookups.
Do we know what the next set of hookups are?
No.
They would be in line. I think they're coming. I mean, Aaron, didn't you just say, or you said somebody?
Well, we have a work order, and then what Joe's talking about is he's talking about the money that's the balance that's going to be left over.
Beyond the work order.
Beyond the work order. It's the next work order.
Right. We don't, and at this moment, we really don't have anybody lined up. We've had nibbles here and there, and we have done zero by way of marketing. I mean, if you want to think about it, it would be an opportunity to sort of put together an economic development plan as a model, right? I mean, and subsidize.
But Aaron, we can't have that next tier of people we're marketing to until we know what the deal is we're offering them. So a policy.
Sure, I understand.
Laterals if you're the first 10, or we'll pay for half, or we'll pay the average. These are different policies that they need to know to evaluate their own business thing.
Yes, that's true. And at the very same time, assuming that RACE is something more than just a municipal service provider for ISP, they're out there marketing right now. We have absolutely no idea how they're marketing and to where and what, in fact, what price point they're going to come in at for 1 gigabyte service.
And in fact, that leads to another thing that you need to contribute to. Can you explain the deal with Carson? Because you told me that Carson has already split out and they're making a separate deal with American Dark Fiber to go into their commercial district. And I'm a little alarmed at that. You and I have.
Wait. I'm not sure I understand that, or how you've misconstrued what I've said, but I can happily. So this gets to the idea of asset management and side deals, if you want to call it that. In order for us to get a decent, or a low cost way of connecting our network through Carson, we asked Carson for the use of their conduit, basically. This is a low cost way of actually stringing fiber into their city hall and routing the network so that down to Lomita and such. And so for that privilege, okay, which ADF pays for, okay, they also get ADF also gets dark fiber, which they can use any way they want. Carson also gets dark fiber, which they can use any way they want. So it's a win-win situation. On the table in Carson are the opportunity to expand that model to run it all the way down the length of Carson Boulevard or other places where the city owns open conduit effectively. And that's a discussion, an opportunity for ADF and the city to have at some point. And Kevin Kennedy sits there like the Cheshire Cat. He has ideas, and so does Tariq about economic development. And that
Tariq didn't come on.
No, he didn't. That was a shame. He has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
So what you're pointing at, Wally, is something that I think falls into the sort of asset management world for cities. So now you have a network, right? And it's the dig once policy. Well, that helps you as a city kind of begin to develop out the opportunity for your own broadband at some point, or to lease it back out and have somebody else manage it for you, which is kind of this model that the ADF is working anyway with Redondo Beach, or Torrance, I should say, and Carson, and I think I can't remember, but I think those two for sure. But so it's complicated, and there are a lot of pieces that are already in play and moving.
And that's what I think we need to get a handle on, because one of the concerns I had is when we start looking at the various policies that the fiber network itself, the policy board that governs it, which right now is the four of us plus the board of directors, is we're losing the essence of the South Bay Fiber Network being the network, not the South Bay Fiber Network and then the Carson component, which they're going their own way to make their own money. What we want to do is to consolidate it so that the fiber network can set policies about disadvantaged communities, can set policies about economic development across the board, can set policies who gets bandwidth and who pays for it. And we can't do that if each of them are going to be their own little fiefdom. And so talking about how we keep them all under one umbrella so that the fiber network itself is something they contribute to and as opposed to building on. You see what I'm saying?
I do. It's a razor thin line that you walk, because that's, as somebody said, they're in it for themselves, right, on some level, and there's a collective opportunity for others. And I've been trying to pitch this idea of bringing in a company, like a vendor like NextGen in Brookfield. I think I shared that with all of you at some point. NextGen they do asset management for municipalities. So they look at what you have, they actually put it into a GIS form, they count it, they count telephone poles, everything else, and they give you some sort of analysis of the value of that as it would be for yourself. And in this case, perhaps for the collective, the subregion at large. Brookfield, okay, as you may know, is an asset management company, and they own bazillions of big commercial real estate, basically. But they're in the business now of buying up or leasing long-term city assets like conduits and telephone poles and such. And again, it's sort of become kind of like the CAA stuff, where you're doing energy generation, but you're buying back at a fixed price over long term, and somebody else is taking care of the headache for you. Again, that's the piece to this, that you could leverage a PPP with, to do a lot of this work for you. That's one model that's out there. And I think cities would benefit from understanding that if they don't, because they're going to be approached anyway. And, they're
Okay,
like
but
ducks.
again, I think our thing would be to not encourage cities to go out on their own, but to do this as a sub-regional whole. This is kind of what Michael was saying, is that they were stronger together. This is the Joe Biden thing. We're stronger together than if every city says, oh, I've got my piece and I'm going to go off and do it. And I think that's a battle we've got to really take on.
Jackie, does this smack of trying to get this working group to sort of validate, just, we put stuff on the table for them and they say thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we have sort of marching orders to go ahead and find collective opportunities and then pitch the cities. I would rather it be organic, but if it's more driven in that kind of quasi top down way, maybe that's the way it goes.
I think we have to just keep our ears open. I don't want it to be top down. I want to see if we can figure out, maybe run some ideas by a couple of people and see if that has any interest. And we also have whole cities that are missing here, like Torrance is missing, and Lomita is missing, is the small, the big. So we should look at who we're listening to and hearing from. So I don't know.
But in terms of next steps, Joe's going to send me some dates next week. I will circulate them, and let's get him going on the question about Daigle and doing the kind of primer for the South Bay Fiber Network that we could videotape and make available and run past these guys before we make it available. Maybe that's an idea. That's a role for them.
Do you want to prepare?
I want to take up Aaron's point as well, though, which is how do we deal with this expansion, and because it has to do with how you explain this to folks. What are your options? And I think this is part of it. But I'm sorry, Jackie, go ahead. What?
Expansion of you. Well, that's what we want to, I mean, I think that we can't discuss expansion until everybody understands the proper role of all the different agencies and people. That's the precursor to discussing where we go with all of that.
Well, I wrote in the end of 2019 that our first step in all this would be self-education.
Right. Well, that's okay. But the question is, what's this?
We don't have the time to self-educate. We run into, there's the bullshit SCAG stuff. There's the bullshit Metro stuff.
That's why I'm saying that we either find somebody that has the time or we up Magellan. I mean, we have to do something. We can't, this is now something that has to get done. And now we have to, and we have a funding source, which is our state money. And we have to figure out, do we have the bandwidth to actually take care of it? I
would say that this is more important than anything else we're doing. This is the future right here, and putting our resources into positioning the COG to be the driver, the lead, the beneficiary, the guider, the planner is the legacy that we want to leave the COG with. This is very big deal, much more so than I'm not diminishing it, we have to do it, but the REAP program is small potatoes compared to this.
Okay, but I can't do that. I can't prioritize them like that because for the cities, the reprogram is going to be very important. And what you're talking about is you're talking about the future. We have to prioritize everything all at the same time. That's my problem. So the question is, does Joe have somebody he works with in Southern California who could work for us part-time and work under Aaron or something that would have the actual expertise to know what a mesh network is and why Corn Castle can be on the poles without us having to go somewhere else to get that expertise.
Okay, let's revisit this conversation during the Joe meeting where he gives us some advice on what should be covered in the primer.
I'm definitely feeling like we need somebody else, part-time or whatever, dedicated.
He's already got us a date next week. Let's go from there and see who else we need. I wouldn't get Jory Wolf though. I just don't want to hear Jory.
I understand. But the thing about Jory is he seems to know what's going on in California. So I don't know if Joe knows as much about that as Jory does.
He does not.
Well, so that's important too. If we're going to work on the broadband council stuff, we have to know what's going on in California.
Okay, well, okay. The meeting's Wednesday. We'll know pretty much what the broadband council is doing Wednesday.
Well, we'll figure it out. Okay, I'm exhausted.
Long day.
Yeah, so I really, let's sort of write up our notes and figure out where we are. We now have a meeting date we have to figure out. Steve, I would really, when you said we need to find a corridor and move forward, we should be doing that. I mean, I think that should be something that moves forward right now.
I'll talk to Ted.
Yeah, and let's bring something tangible back.
Okay, just to jump in on that for a second. So in our funding agreement, we have 2 cities that are called out specifically for basically signal sync and using our network to facilitate that: Torrance and Manhattan Beach. Torrance won't be up and operational for another month and a half probably, and Manhattan Beach is sort of. I mean. But effectively, they already have they're ready to go. This is just about sort of connecting the dots, I think. On one level, that's the funding agreement level. On sort of long-term applications into the future, that's another story. But
my feeling is that we don't want to just do Manhattan Beach and we don't want to just do Torrance. We want to do like a couple of cities so that we have a corridor that's regional. We're the regional agency. So we want to see if we can do something regional. And the other thing I was going to say that I forgot I was going to say is that I was thinking of doing things, looking for projects that we could do throughout the South Bay. I think we should look for projects like peninsula projects or beach cities projects or, basin projects. I think that's going to be more realistic as far as how they're going to address issues.
Okay, and that makes sense. And we can talk also to Beach Cities Health District because there's an obvious Beach Cities application using them as a hub.
Well, I don't know if we should talk to them yet, but Steve, what were you going to say?
Artesia Boulevard goes through what cities?
Artesia goes through Gardena, Redondo. Does it go through? I don't know.
Ends at
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne.
Does it go through Hawthorne? That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Isn't that the 91 Surface Street?
It is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give us Caltrans as well.
Okay.
If
So
you
maybe
come
that's.
if you come off the 91 and go to the coast, that may be the corridor that we should start with.
And then that has that library, which I don't know. What are they planning to do with the library?
Good question. The only reason they actually have a circuit there is we convinced them that there was an economic development opportunity down Artesia.
Is that Christian's district? Is that why?
Christian's district, and he was going to plug me into the economic development people at Redondo Beach, and they don't respond. I'm not very crazy about Redondo Beach. They pay no attention to us. The flying director never comes to the COG meetings. She never had a conversation with me, even despite being encouraged by Christian. They really almost are as bad as Torrance in terms of going their own way. I would suggest Hawthorne Boulevard or PCH, which covers more cities.
Are we talking about economic development, or are we talking about something else?
We're talking about the corridor for the signal control.
Yeah, it doesn't go through a lot of cities. I don't know that it goes through Hawthorne. I'm trying to figure this out. I think it's just Gardena and Redondo.
Well, yeah.
I don't think, maybe Hawthorne. I can't figure out the corporate boundaries of Hawthorne.
Steve, do you have any idea when I said about I would love to do street sensors to do traffic counts? Do you know anything about how that's done?
Yeah, I do, kind of. It's done through video and it's done through loops.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, take a look at what I sent to Caltrans, Wally. You were CC'd on it.
Okay.
Okay, so the next meeting then is with Joe and Colleen tomorrow morning. I'm gonna talk to her about working with you, Aaron. And I think you're right, Aaron. We can have groundbreaking. I mean, we can have pictures of them doing the stuff, digging and whatever. And fiber, holding up the fiber and discussing. Alex can talk about the parks. So what's fascinating is, once again, we've done good work and nobody knows. And Mark Henderson doesn't even seem to know what Gardena is doing.
Yeah, that was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really interesting because they're doing some great things and he doesn't even know about it.
One thing that Colleen could do, again, this is where high-level communications piece could be helpful, is to spoon feed them pieces that they can use in their own cities, right? Tell the stories, and we can use it for ourselves. Obviously, we do, but
Jack, you're muted now.
Oh, it was Kim. I have to call her back.
Got it. I think that we could tell Colleen, let's stage a ribbon cutting, a fake ribbon cutting at Equinix or something, where you get the various Marisucci and MRT, and they all stand there with a big set of scissors, and we cut a fake ribbon.
Cut a fiber cable.
What about just photoshopping them into some picture?
Yeah, I could do that too.
Do something more creative than that.
Symbolically what it is that you want, and then we fill it out with the content. See what Colleen says about this. I mean, that's a big input, what she's got to say about.
Well, I think what I'm going to say to her is, she said that she was given a job. If you remember, she was on Torrance Cable, and her thing was, what was the future of Torrance or next Torrance or something. She had a series she did. So my question to her would be, what if I gave you South Bay Fiber Network and you were going to do a feature video on South Bay Fiber Network? What would you do?
I'd like to see the series she did on the future of Torrance.
Well, that's a whole other story.
I have a hard time keeping the bile down at the back of my throat.
I don't know if it was the future of Torrance, but the point is, this is a video on the history and the success of the South Bay Fiber Network. And she's done, it should be something that she can do because she's done that kind of thing for Torrance.
Okay, well, you have that conversation tomorrow. I will circulate Joe's dates as soon as I get them. And let's get together and talk and start this process with Joe, leading to Daigle, leading to PUC, leading to something.
Right. And let's make sure we have enough for October 19th so they know that we know what we're doing.
Not to worry.
Okay. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.